Channel 2.
From ABC, this is World News Tonight with Peter Jennings.
Good evening. We begin tonight with federal judge Clarence Thomas, President Bush's nominee to the Supreme Court. He's about to undergo the most difficult cross-examination of his professional life. Tomorrow, the Senate Judiciary Committee will begin asking questions like, where does he stand on abortion? What about personal privacy? Has he forgotten his roots? Today, Mr. Bush said he remains strongly committed to Judge Thomas, but he acknowledged there is going to be a fight for the confirmation. Here's our law correspondent, Tim O'Brien.
Clarence Thomas was behind closed doors today in final preparation for the hearings. He's already undergone weeks of coaching from the White House and over the summer made courtesy calls on 59 senators. Several of them later said Thomas is prepared to vigorously and persuasively defend his tenure as chairman of the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. He's sure to be asked in the hearings about thousands of age discrimination cases that were allowed to expire without any commission action. He's been telling senators he lacked adequate resources. Some congressional critics say what was lacking was compassion and sensitivity.
He's eminently not qualified to serve on the High Court. We have had experiences with him that show a blatant disregard for the elderly and a blatant disregard for the First Amendment.
Many black leaders are against Thomas because of his opposition to affirmative action.
To nominate a black, particular conservative, is simply to add insult to injury.
Those who favor abortion rights fear Thomas would be a deciding vote to overrule Roe versus Wade, the decision legalizing abortion. Today, President Bush said Thomas should resist answering questions about that or any other issue before the court. But Thomas is expected to explain his views about natural law, that there are God-given rights that transcend legal rights. Would Thomas, as a justice, put his own moral views above the Constitution? His chief sponsor in the Senate says no.
But I have no doubt that in the mind of Clarence Thomas, the Constitution comes first.
Thomas's own compelling story, how he rose from poverty to prominence, is expected to be a major plus, the centerpiece of the White House strategy to clinch Senate approval. But Thomas isn't taking anything for granted. A key part of his homework has been to study videotapes of past confirmation hearings, to do everything possible to avoid any mistakes in the crucial days ahead. Tim O'Brien, ABC News on Capitol Hill.
The confirmation process is very political. Joining us on Capitol Hill tonight is ABC's Cokie Roberts. Cokie, is there anything which his critics or his supporters believe is going to make a major difference?
Well, in the hearings, I think the supporters believe that the whole story of Clarence Thomas's life, as we've just heard Tim talking about, will be a major plus for him. His opponents hope that by the time the questioning goes on for a couple of days, he gets into some tough areas of the law, some inconsistencies in his own writing, that he might look like he's too far out of the mainstream and start to scare the American people on TV. That's what their hope is.
So they think that television will actually make a difference?
They think television will make a difference, but I must tell you, Peter, that one thing that hasn't happened is a big grassroots swell against Clarence Thomas from all of these groups that have come out against him. And the most interesting thing is the split in the black community. The black leadership has come out against him, but polls show that black people are not against him, and the mail coming into Senate offices has made it very clear that a lot of black constituents are not against Clarence Thomas, and that can make a huge difference in what is ultimately a political decision.
Okay, Cokie, thanks. We'll talk to you again tomorrow. When we come back this evening, the Soviet Union. After the revolution, can it survive the winter? And later in the broadcast, migration in reverse. Children of the northern ghettos going back to their parents' roots in the south. And finally, the great circle mystery in England. Maybe an answer to whodunit.
This is World News Tonight with Peter Jennings. Brought to you by Buick and your local Buick dealer.
Reintroducing a glorious name for a glorious new automobile. The 1992 Buick Roadmaster. With its powerful V8 performance and the security of its driver's airbag, anti-lock brakes, and full perimeter frame, Roadmaster is perhaps the best value in an American luxury sedan. Roadmaster also delivers something only a Buick can deliver. Buick quality.
Pain from just one sensitive tooth can start the domino effect. Pain can make you stop brushing, lead to plaque buildup, gingivitis, periodontal disease, even tooth loss. Sensodyne toothpaste helps stop the pain and the domino effect.
Shoot some slices, shoot some shreds, shoot some salad shooter.
Presto Salad Shooter Slicer Shredder. Point and shoot right where you want. Clean up easy, dishwasher safe, store anywhere. Original, cordless, and professional salad shooter.
In the Soviet Union today, an announcement that once would have been revolutionary and doesn't now mean very much. The Central Asian Republic of Tajikistan has declared its independence. Only 4 of the 12 remaining Soviet republics have yet to do so. Today, that was perhaps the least of Mikhail Gorbachev's worries as he sought to find a solution to the economic woes that now threaten to overwhelm the new union this winter. ABC's Jim Laurie is in Moscow.
The German foreign minister told Mikhail Gorbachev that Germany would push for an international effort to provide emergency aid this winter. But can this splintered nation efficiently absorb such aid? Gorbachev's new state council is struggling to coordinate radical economic change.
There are problems with different republics because not every republic is willing to move very rapidly.
Without coordination among republics, there'd be no guarantees on how aid money would be spent and who would distribute it. And emergency aid might be wasted in republics that have not yet got out from under the central planning bureaucracy. Foreign economists warn that communism may be dead, but the economic legacy remains.
These are people that have lived under an old system. They don't really understand the market economy yet.
For now, the transitional economic team under Russian Prime Minister Salayev is more concerned about simply getting through the winter. Salayev warns of a critical fuel crisis. While the Soviets have the world's largest oil reserves, production and transportation problems have left power stations in the Russian Federation with only 60% of the fuel they need. At Moscow markets today, there were no more than the usual shortages. But with continuing distribution problems and a bad crop, city officials warn of a serious lack of potatoes and vegetables this winter. Gorbachev disclosed today he was sending envoys to Germany and Gulf states like Saudi Arabia to look for emergency aid. But so long as relations among the republics remain uncertain, decisive economic action at home will have to wait. Jim Laurie, ABC News, Moscow.
The breakup of the Soviet Union has a lot of people once again taking a close look at the Pentagon's budget. Does the U.S. need to spend so much on defense, they ask, if the Soviets no longer pose such a threat? Here's ABC's Bob Zelnick.
The U.S. continues to build and deploy weapons designed to match up against the old Soviet threat. Defense Secretary Cheney says this is still a smart thing to be doing.
I think it's bad business to try to build the long-term defense plans based on euphoria. You've got to have something more substantive than that.
But many analysts do see substantive changes beginning to happen in the Soviet military. Smaller forces divided up among the republics with far less money to spend on weapons. And they say Pentagon spending plans should also change in coming years.
I think we really are back to the drawing boards on our defense budgets.
Budget cutters will look closely at systems like the Sea-Wolf submarines, specifically designed to hunt Soviet subs.
If the Soviet Navy is no longer a threat, what is it that threatens the United States' control of the seas? Virtually nothing.
There will also be pressure to cut back carrier battle groups from 12 to 6. And there will be calls to slow down the development of new stealth fighters for the Air Force and Navy. Still, with defense spending already in decline, Cheney warns against hasty decisions.
You simply don't ratchet military force up and down on a week or a month or even a year's developments. You need long-term plans that you can implement and stick with over a significant period of time.
Pentagon critics respond that military planning must be more flexible. They say that unless the Pentagon adjusts to the sudden and sweeping retrenchment of the Soviet threat, the U.S. will be locked into levels of weapons spending and production far beyond what security requires. Bob Zelnick, ABC News at the Pentagon.
On the subject of planning, President Bush said today there will be no more negotiations with the Philippines over a new lease for the U.S. naval base at Subic Bay. The U.S., he said, has made its best offer. This morning, a majority of the Philippine Senate spoke out against the agreement, which calls for the U.S. to pay the Philippines $203 million a year for 10 years. The Bush administration has finally agreed to provide $5 million to help children and other victims of the war inside Cambodia. Originally, the administration said it would only give aid to children who were not under the communist government's control. Another example of things going from bad to worse in Cuba, the government is now going to ration cigarettes and cigars. Bad enough for Cuban smokers, but not a good sign for other reasons. The sale of Cuban cigars overseas earns a pretty penny in hard currency. And because of the turmoil in the Soviet Union, which used to help a lot, Cubans are being squeezed generally. We'll have more news in just a moment.
The same medicine found in the prescription drug Motrin.
The same medicine found in the prescription drug Motrin.
Same as in Motrin in non-prescription strength.
The same medicine found in the prescription drug.
Did you ever notice that a lot of pain relievers seem to be saying the same thing? Well, if you want the same medicine found in the prescription drug Motrin, wouldn't it just be simpler to ask for Motrin IB? Non-prescription strength Motrin IB. You can't buy a more effective pain reliever without a prescription. Motrin IB. Accept no alternatives.
Good morning, America!
Good morning.
Good morning.
Wake up, you sleepyhead. Good morning to you. And you, and you.
Get up, get out of bed.
Every morning all across America, over 50 million people come to life with Delta faucets.
Good morning, good morning.
Delta,
good
the way
morning.
water is brought to life.
It's a car born of intelligent engineering. It's 100,000 ideas fused into one. It's responsive, innovative, refined. It's a driver's side airbag and anti-lock brakes. Introducing the all-new 88 Royale LS. Oldsmobile, the power of intelligent engineering.
An out-of-court settlement today in an environmental pollution case, significant not only for its size, but for the composition of the group that fought the battle. The group is made up of Californians from all walks of life with a common interest in keeping their beaches clean. Here's ABC's Judy Muller.
For years now, chemicals from these two pulp mills in Humboldt County, California, have been flowing into the Pacific Ocean, polluting one of the state's prime surfing areas. Videotape shot by local surfers shows that the water sometimes turns black from the runoff. The surfers chose not to go with the flow. Under the banner of their own lobbying group, the Surfrider Foundation, they went to court.
Surfrider was able to catalog over 40,000 violations of the Clean Water Act against these two companies.
Every 15 seconds, another polluted wave breaks on the shores of Humboldt County, and we wanted that to stop.
Today's out-of-court settlement with the two companies, Simpson Paper and Louisiana Pacific, is worth more than $100 million. It requires the mills to build waste treatment plants and longer pipes into the ocean to take the processed waste far beyond the surf line. Surfrider is now taking aim at another trouble spot, the beach at Malibu. A lagoon next to the beach fills up with sewage and other pollutants and eventually flows into the ocean. The bacteria in the water are being blamed for an increase in viral infections and other health problems.
The water's brown, it smells, stuff floating in the water, and every time a wave breaks, there's foam all around. And it's just every year it's consistently getting worse and worse.
Recent testing by Surfrider showed 60% of California beaches were contaminated with unacceptable levels of sewage. State water officials dispute that figure, saying their research shows much less contamination, at 20%. But Surfrider says it has more people testing more often. Members are given testing kits to check on bacteria levels and are encouraged to call a hotline to report serious contamination. And the group says it is fighting the pollution battle not just for surfers, but for everyone who loves the ocean. Judy Muller, ABC News, Malibu.
Other news today, a grand jury in Indianapolis has indicted former heavyweight boxing champ Mike Tyson for rape. He is accused of assaulting an 18-year-old beauty pageant contestant. On Wall Street, the Dow Jones Industrials lost about 4.5 points today to close at 3,007. The trading was very slow. A mystery story tonight from England, a story of two men and maybe a myth. There is a phenomenon in the English countryside which has generated a decade's worth of theory and conjecture and argument, even in well-respected scientific circles. Actually, circles are at the root of all the commotion. Could this be alien corn? Was this wheat planted by beings from another planet? The speculation has been going on for a dozen years. how some 1,000 meticulously crafted circular patterns have cropped up one by one in the rich farmland of western England. Was it underground electromagnetic energy, interatmospheric vortices, electrified wind? Enter Douglas Bauer and David Chorley, mischievous British artists who today offered a demonstration of how they say the patterns were created. With these wooden planks, some rope, and a drawing, Bauer and Charlie would steal out into the fields on moonlit nights when no one was watching. So they say.
There's no traffic, there's no human beings, there's no nothing. There's a full moon in the sky, lovely starry night.
They would walk in concentric circles, carefully bending down the stalks so as not to damage any of the grain, and then quietly leave a fresh circle for all the analysts to mull over. Farmers charged admission for a peek. Scientists published papers. Others wrote books. And today, some of them are calling this only the latest chapter. Bauer and Chorley say they've had a grand time quietly watching what began as a prank become a worldwide happening.
At certain times of your life, you love to take somebody for a ride, don't you?
Do we believe them now? Well, yes, in a roundabout sort of way.
On the other hand, we rarely have the last word on anything. We'll be back in just a moment.
One company knows the global market so well that it brings you investment opportunities from America and around the world. With a family of mutual funds that give you an intelligent, professional approach to investing, combined with the benefits of diversification. The company that has done all this should come as no surprise. Because at Merrill Lynch, we're bullish on your future.
Knock, knock, Mom.
Who's there?
This is who? This is a stick-up.
Yeah? Well, this is a mess. But don't worry, tough guy, because Ivory's tough, too. Ivory cleans up even the greasiest casserole dish. See? And Ivory doesn't dry my hands like that other stuff, so they still feel soft.
Knock, knock, Mom.
Who's there?
Banana.
Banana who?
Banana split.
Oh, I'm going to get you.
Ivory Liquid, where clean and soft go hand in hand.
The all-new Pontiac Bonneville. More than a work of art, an engineering masterpiece. With the stability of four-wheel independent suspension and the accuracy of anti-lock brakes. The art of excitement, the science of control. The all-new Pontiac Bonneville.
Get on the Pontiac! Get on the side!
When you get gas pain, which would you choose? Your antacid or Gas X, the tablet made for gas pain? It's extra strength, 100% simethicone to get rid of gas faster than your antacid. Fight gas right with Gas X.
Theragram wants to know, what did you do today? Theragram M, fine-tuned for the way you live.
We have a story about migration in America tonight, migration in search of a better education. Last year in Chicago, more than 3/4 of the black students in public schools scored below the national average on reading and math achievement tests. A lot of parents in Chicago believe that part of the problem, maybe a large part, may be the fact that their children grow up in such violent parts of the city. And so some parents have decided to evacuate their children. Here's ABC's John McKenzie.
Growing up in Chicago's violent West Side can be harrowing for a child. Drug dealers on almost every corner, teenagers with guns.
4, 5, 6 people get killed almost every day.
While many parents must remain here because this is where their jobs are, some feel the neighborhood has become so bad, it's time for their children to get out. Otis Portis, a steel worker, and his wife Bobby Jean moved here from Mississippi 18 years ago, looking for better paying work. This year, they sent their 2 eldest children back to Mississippi to live with their grandmother.
I didn't want them to get into all these gangs up here. And I wanted them to be able to learn something besides, what's in the street.
Hollandale, Mississippi is about as far away from inner city Chicago as a kid could get. 3,500 people live here, a dusty farm town with a few stores and no traffic lights. Instead of dealing drugs on every corner, people are dealing cards under the shade of a locust tree. Here, the Portis kids, Cedric 12 and Anitra 9, have the space and the freedom to act like kids.
We can get outside and play. We can go in where we want to. They ain't got to worry about nothing happening to me. I don't see too many guns down here or no drug dealers.
People don't get killed down here like they do up there.
How many students do we have in here for the first time this year? Would you like to tell us where you went to school last year?
In Chicago.
Oh, you came from Chicago? We hope you enjoy your school year here, POTUS.
In Hollandale, the local school provides the security and the structure that allow a child to have a good year. 90% of them graduate. From the day they enter the system, students are told what's expected of them and what they can expect if they get out of line.
We are old-fashioned in the sense of strict discipline. We still use corporal punishment in extreme cases, and everybody knows everybody, so it's a small-town atmosphere.
The parent can remember their days here on this campus and the safety that they had, and so, you know, they cannot send their children to some private academy, so they take the next option. You know, send them home to grandmama.
Cedric, come on. Why she did you?
There are no exact numbers, but those who study this migration estimate several thousand black children are being sent to live with relatives in the South, to seek refuge from the inner cities. Most remain anywhere from a few months to a few years. Kids like Lashana Reed, who was a gang member in Seattle.
It gives you peace of mind. It lets you know everything's going to be all right. No matter what you've done in the past, you can come in here and get your life back together and straighten out and all that.
Or 16-year-old Ned Curtis from Dallas, who saw a man stabbed in the street.
You don't have to worry about getting killed or beaten up or something. Not mostly all the time.
And you had to worry about that in Dallas?
Yes.
A rural town like Hollandale is not perfect. There are some drugs and small gangs, but in nowhere near the numbers of a big inner city. And it is not for everyone. Some teenagers find life here too boring or confining, and their parents soon bring them home. And of course, some here get homesick.
The bad thing, you probably miss your mama and everything.
Is it worth it?
Yeah. It works to come down here and finish school. Or you can go and get your education and get a job.
And get something else. A rare chance to grow in peace. John McKenzie, ABC News, Hollandale, Mississippi.
A very important voice in the national debate on AIDS has been silenced. Belinda Mason was the only member of President Bush's National Commission on AIDS to actually have the disease. She was critical of the administration's AIDS policies, as well as the way people with AIDS become stigmatized. This summer, she said, when people talk to me now, they see the disease first. Nobody talks to Belinda Mason, the short story writer, anymore. I've become the disease. Belinda Mason, mother of two, who got AIDS from contaminated blood during childbirth, was 33. We'll have our final report in a moment.
My dad had ulcers, so when my stomach started acting up, I was afraid to go to the doctor. But finally, I went. Was I relieved when my doctor said Mylanta? He said it was indigestion, not an ulcer, and my kind of indigestion called for strong medicine.
Mylanta is strong medicine, strongly recommended. In fact, Mylanta is the antacid doctors recommend most.
My doctor said Mylanta.
Now available in cherry and cool mint cream flavors.
To get rid of her gray, my wife can spend 40 minutes. But I discovered this 5-minute hair coloring.
The revolutionary discovery called Just for Men from the leader in men's hair coloring. Simply apply Just for Men and in 5 minutes shampoo out.
Gray is blended away. The look of my natural color is back in 5 minutes. That was me, and it won't fade or wash out.
My hair takes forever, but you look great in just 5 minutes.
The look of your natural color in just 5 minutes with Just for Men.
Once again, Buick is raising the banner for quality in America. Introducing the 1992 LeSabre with a higher level of power, safety, security, and convenience. This new LeSabre is going to be one tough act to follow. Saver for 1992 from Buick.
Tonight on Nightline, on the eve of confirmation hearings for Clarence Thomas, how the Supreme Court nomination has bitterly divided the black community. Tonight.
Finally here this evening, a time of renewal in a region in need of hope. This is the first day of Rosh Hashanah, the Jewish New Year, a time for remembrance and looking ahead. It is a particularly poignant time for the Jews, those few who are left, in the Russian city of Odessa. Between the Tsars and the Nazis and the Communists, most of Odessa's 250,000 Jews are gone. Most, but not all. ABC's Jim Bitterman is there.
To the sound of a ram's horn, the Jewish New Year began in Odessa, just as it does everywhere. And like Jews everywhere, those here reflect on past mistakes and future opportunities. But this year, too, in Odessa, there are new considerations about the main preoccupation here, whether or not to emigrate. By his very presence at the synagogue, Alexander Tubis raises some of them. He went to the United States 4 years ago. Now he's back in Odessa to set up a business. There have been, he said, a lot of changes.
People can work here, do business here, teach their children here. I think so. It's no problem to be Jewish here.
But it is still a problem for anyone to live here. And every day the trains and planes pull out with Jewish immigrants. A better lifestyle is what most seem after. And so, in the Odessa region, the number of immigrants bound for Israel is sharply down, and the number of those bound for the United States sharply up from last year. What's more, just as communists during their 70 years in power obliterated Jewish cemeteries like this one, they also seem to have destroyed much of the tradition and fabric of the Jewish community. Stuart Saffer was sent here from New York to help in the revival of it.
What we're involved in is bringing anonymous Jews out who for years hid away their Judaism, bringing them out to actually hold their head up high and say we're Jewish.
Anna Misyuk has rediscovered her religion and says leaving would betray those who remain here. Her husband says that with the changes in the Soviet Union, now is the time to stay and fight.
I feel that I am very glad to be here because if I would be abroad, I would feel as ashamed that I ran away from the field of struggle.
And so, while immigrants haven't stopped leaving Odessa for the promise of a new life, at least some Jews here are finding new reasons to stay. Jim Bitterman, ABC News, Odessa.
And that's our report on World News Tonight. I'm Peter Jennings. Have a nice evening. Good night.
This has been a presentation of ABC News. More Americans get their news from ABC News than from any other source.
Are you ready to rock? Are you ready to roll? Are you ready for America's #1 primetime football show? We're gonna make you smile and get rid of your blues. Monday Night Football boogie for you.
News of the Northwest is next on 2. The home of a family which recently moved to Portland from South Africa is the target of vandals.
Police have arrested a suspect in the murder of a couple in Seaside.
A Southeast Portland boy escapes an apparent abduction attempt.
And the owner of 2 black leopards